championships. Let's see who'll be going first. Looks like it will be Greg.
Charmander being flipped up, and this is a big starting point. Now you have an idea of what you're playing against, or at least somewhat of an idea. Charizard EX, big inclusion in the deck here. This changed up as OJVIND starts the turn off. Very simple for Greg, but that's really what this deck expects. Just getting energy attachments down into Dwebble, starting to turn off. Let's not forget that Secret Box is prized here for OJVIND, so you've got to wonder, is it an opportunity where AIRPODS is still preferred from this point on, or is something even as content as I am? It looks like there was a lot of mulligans. This hand is huge here for OJVIND without having played a supporter card. Immediately that Chi-Yu is going to come down into play.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense to get that down early. And I guess the thing is about the Secret Box being a prize, you don't necessarily know that straight away. So maybe you play that ARB and then you find out the Secret Box is prize. You can just take it from there. I think that it's obviously, you want to see that at some point to get yourself set up nicely. But in this matchup specifically, I think you're kind of playing a different game to usual, right? You're not doing your usual, oh, I just want to set up my Charizard, go ahead. And actually, on that note, OJVIND's going to go ahead and just make use of that Professor's Research, dump that whole hand and draw 7 cards.
It was a little bit of an internal debate there, kind of just debating, do I want to play Iono? I get to keep some of these cards like Boss's Orders for later, but my opponent didn't really do much. And you have to feel like that, sort of lackluster start for Greg. Just attach, bench a Pokemon, and pass. It's enough for OJVIND to be okay discarding some of these Pokemon, or rather cards from his hand, especially when he's going to get an extra card and be able to use Buddy Buddy Poffin. Immediately just checking this Dusknoir line, sees how valuable it is against a deck where you're not going to be relying off of Charizard EX to take fast, big hits and big KOs.
Yeah, so this Buddy Buddy Poffin is absolutely vital for that reason. If I were OJVIND here, I imagine I would be wanting to go for a nice mix of maybe Charmander and Duskull, because these are 2 ways that you can get around that the Crustl's ability, of course. You can make use of the Dusclops's and Dusknoir's Curse Blast to do some damage onto one of these Crustles, or even Dwebble if you can get it going early enough. But then also you want to get multiple Charmander out, so you can evolve one into Charizard and one into Charmeleon, so you can then use the Charizard to power up the Charmeleon and start hitting these Crustles with that as well.
Just the energy attachment, we saw Defiance Band get played. We'll go ahead and see what appears to be Pokegear 3.0. Maybe one supporter as the choice for Greg. It is an ARVIN. Question here, does Greg have a better option to play? And also, if there isn't a better option, what does ARVIN get for Greg that's going to allow him to progress his board? Big thing for Greg. He's going to want to make sure to check out that Chi-Yu and see how he can avoid that boosted damage from Mega Fire Event.
Yeah, so I think ARVIN's going to be the choice here. And I think what Greg might be thinking is, do I want to try and just basically evolve up into a Crustle and ensure it survives? So one of the big tools that this Crustle deck does make use of is that Luxurious Cape. When it's attached to a Pokemon, it does make that Pokemon give an extra prize up when it's knocked out by damage, but it does also give that Pokemon an extra, I believe, 100 HP. So it's a very, very big HP boost that the Luxurious Cape gives.
Lots of tool cards in this deck. Mainly one that does not see a lot of play in a lot of standard decks right now. We saw Isaiah Bradner use this in a cool way in that Gardevoir EX deck. It is that TM Turbo Energize. Well, you can rely off things like Crispin to accelerate energy into play. If you're not using a better attack for turn, you can end your turn with essentially a glorified energy acceleration, especially when you're staring down a one-hit KO machine like Chi-Yu. How to expect a big priority for Greg here is making sure that not just one Crustle, but maybe even 2 or 3 are ready, so that when Mega Fire of Envy is used, there's a guaranteed response KO, so Greg does not have to worry about easy access to another one-hit KO, albeit it's still possible thanks to that Infernal Rain ability.
Yeah, I think that's definitely something that Greg will be considering, although it looks like the choice is going to be actually just another Luxurious Cape, so no Turbo Energize this time, it looks like. I don't believe it's not, or is it in the hand already?
No Turbo Energize in the hand. This is the question of, what do you prioritize? You can, of course, use that energy acceleration from the TM Turbo Energize, or Greg can actually use the Ascension attack on this active. It's an iconic attack in the Pokemon TCG throughout time, just to let you search your deck for a Pokemon that evolves from this one, put it on top, getting yourself evolved, getting yourself set up, and not having to worry about this Dwebble being in fear of KO'd from something like Charizard EX, since it does not yet have that mysterious Rock-In ability.
Yeah, and there it is. The Ascension comes in, evolving up that Dwebble into the Crustle, and look at that, 250 HP on a Crustle. That is a big, big HP boost. So OJVIND's going to have to try and find a way to get a KO here, but I'm actually not sure if you can, unless you maybe use some combination of Dusclops and Charmeleon, perhaps, and maybe that's what's going for. Oh, no, going to start off with Rare Candy into Pidgeot. That's great for OJVIND there.
Yeah, you know, OJVIND could go ahead and rush a KO, but why really bother? You know, your opponent's deck is not super aggressive in terms of dealing damage. You kind of can wait to go into Chi-Yu until it's boosted to do that damage, because if your opponent's not going to swing and put any pressure, you can kind of just sit here and build up as many strong disruptive Pokemon on your bench, like the Dusclops, like the Dusknoir, and now with Pidgeot, you're kind of just set for the rest of the game.
Absolutely.
It's never being threatened in terms of aggressive damage. 280 HP is more than enough to survive a couple of those superb scissors attacks. So now the question here for OJVIND is, you know, got the first step out of the way. Setup is clean, Pidgeot's in play. Now with these quick search abilities, what type of board, Freya, do you think he wants to build towards in this situation?
So it looks like kind of going along what you were saying, considering maybe just not even going for a Rare Candy to evolve that Charizard up straight away that is in the hand, maybe thinking about going for a Charmeleon instead, or it could be even, maybe preempting, actually going to go ahead and quick search for that Arvin, and then from that, we'll be able to grab a Rare Candy and a TM Evolution. So very much going for this approach where you just set up your board as well as possible, and maybe you can just do a bunch of shenanigans with Dusclops and Dusknoir with Curse Blast, and then maybe you just clear Greg's entire board and just win the game that way.
Yeah, and a small choice that didn't seem super relevant, you know, if OJVIND wanted to go for TM Evolution, was attaching that Defiance Band to the active, right? That Pokemon does not have the ability to get another tool card attached to it. With there being no energy in hand here for OJVIND, it means it's going to just have to go and grab some of these Pokemon manually and just use that TM Evolution as discard fodder. Looks like it will actually be getting a little bit aggressive in this spot. It's going to get the Rare Candy number 2. Charizard EX gets evolved. Infernal Rain searches out Fire Energy from the deck. With these energies being placed onto both the Charmeleon and the Chi-Yu, you just see a 2-hit or 3-hit rather KO start to be set up, thus taking double damage.
So that, I do believe then, it's going to be a 3-hit KO, but also this goes back to something you were saying right at the beginning. It is kind of aggressive, but also not. You're not really that scared of the Crustle doing much to you. So yeah, maybe just going for the 3-hit KO here is completely fine. Or even like next turn, if you want to go ahead and try and speed things up a little bit, you still have that access to Quick Search. Maybe then next turn you go ahead and start doing some more shenanigans with Duskull and with the Dusclops and the Dusknoir, and then you start really putting the hurt on Greg.
Yeah, even though this damage doesn't seem super relevant at this point, you've always got to remember that that Defiance Band can be triggered very easily in a spot like this.
Yeah.
With the use of one of those Dusclops or Dusknoir abilities, you could just go ahead and not only give yourself the plus 30 boost, which essentially acts as plus 60 because of the weakness, but you can also just put those damage counters on another Pokemon to put pressure onto it. You can take a one-hit knockout on Monkey Dory, for example, if you have that Dusknoir. So 100 damage, going to put pressure on Greg's side immediately.
And we just saw that OJVIND had a look at the Luxurious Cape and picked it up. I think he was looking to make sure that the extra prize card that you take from it, if it only takes effect when you do damage from an attack, which that is indeed how it works. So I think being very careful to make sure that when he takes a KO, it is with an attack, so you can actually take the extra prize card and essentially, you know, turn KOing a Crustle into KOing a EX instead of a single prizer.
Now a very interesting choice for Greg. Crispin, the supporter of turn. I'm sure we'll see the Grass Energy be attached from that effect to the active. And now with this Dark Energy, you've got two choices, right? Monkey Dory could use Adrenabrain this turn to heal damage off. Right, is that really better than just slowly starting to power up this Crustle, because Chi-Yu is waiting on the bench and he's ready to get in there?
Yeah, you got to be a little bit careful about falling into that. It almost feels like if you're Greg, you're kind of, you know, doomed if you do, doomed if you don't, because you're going to play into that Defiance Band potentially. But if you knock it off the Charmeleon off the board, then I guess you're not as worried about it, because you don't know. It seems unlikely there'll be another Defiance Band waiting. These Charizard lists don't tend to play more than one. But yeah, a lot to think about for Greg here. And it looks like, yeah, they're actually not going to bother with the Monkey Dory. Just going to go ahead and put that Dark on the second Crustle to start powering it up for its own superb scissors.
Yeah, and this is really where I wonder, you know, if Greg is going to start attacking and start swinging into Pokemon, I would really love to see him at least have 2 energy on the bench Crustle, so that when Chi-Yu inevitably comes up, you can at least take it out of play and force resources out of OJVIND to re-establish that. With how the board is stated now, Chi-Yu can take the knockout, and if there's no Crispin on the following turn for Greg, it can even just retreat to the bench and wait until something else gets KO'd to get that full damage from Mega Fire of Envy, as OJVIND will just continue to search out these pieces every turn with Quick Search. And I do wonder, in a matchup like this, does Greg have access to the tools that are needed to deal with the wide variety, or rather enough variety of attackers that OJVIND has to deal with the Safeguard?
Well, this is one of the other problems that Greg's deck has. Like, generally speaking, one of the weaknesses of the Crystal deck, it doesn't have as reliable a consistency engine as some of these other decks have. You're relying on buying turns, just drawing once per turn because you can't be hit to see you through. That's essentially the deck's consistency, in quotes. But when you're dealing with a deck that actually can hit you pretty quickly early on, that's not really an option anymore. And if you see here, yeah, this Chi's just going to come in, and that it will be a knockout for 2 prize cards. So that Mega Fire of Envy coming in and making sure that Luxurious Cape is triggered. So 2 prize cards for OJVIND.
More than content taking those 2 prize cards, using Quick Search to get that Dusclops evolved and into play. So there could be a lot of fireworks on the following turn. Does top deck Pokegear 3.0? If there's a Crispin in hand, there was. Okay. However, Greg just did not have knowledge that that would be the top deck for turn. Yeah. I have to imagine if Greg knew all of this would unfold as it did, Crystal could have come into the active spot. The Crispin's great and can power it up, but with there now being no way to move the Monkey Dory, thanks to it having a single retreat cost, I'm not sure Greg's going to be able to pull off an attack this turn if that is the supporter of choice.
Yeah, I don't think so either. So now, that means this this choice off of the Poke is a little bit tricky. And actually, with that decision, with that commitment, decides that maybe just going for the Arven here is better. And I think I kind of have to agree. You've committed to not attacking. So instead, maybe now, yes, you go for that Turbo Energize, and you can go ahead and get this Crystal fully powered up now.
That means this Chi-Yu will not be under any pressure and can potentially just pivot into attacking with a different Pokemon this turn to KO the Monkey Dory. There is only 2 Fire Energy, of course, on the board. That Charizard EX Infernal Rain ability already been expanded. So this board is getting a little bit congested on OJVIND's side. Could always free spots up with something like Dusclops. But for now, Greg's going to hope that a couple more Crabs can get the thing done, get this job finished, accelerate those energies with the TM Turbo Energize. OJVIND, is ahead in this prize trade. He's got plenty of solid Pokemon at play, and more importantly, still a large amount of resources at his disposal that could allow him to just push through, 1 to 2, even 3 more of these Crystal, if there's that many available for Greg.
I was just trying to think here, is there a universe where OJVIND can just take the win this turn with, if you can use 2 Curse Blast and then get a Charizard going in or just something to finish off this Monkey Dory? I do believe that should do the trick, right? You can't do it the Chi-Yu because nothing was knocked out this turn, so you can do Dusclops shenanigans to boost the damage that way. But I think depending on what OJVIND has, there is a universe in which OJVIND just takes the game this turn.
I think the damage is capped this turn. Even if you use 2 Curse Blasts, you're only dealing 100 damage max with that Chi-Yu. So the Crystal having 250 HP thanks to the Luxurious Cape, and with there being no way to turn those tool cards off in the deck means I think it's going to be just a little bit short. But why rush here if you're OJVIND, right? You're in a super solid spot. Even if you're not winning the game this turn, if you can just somehow boss the Crystal up this turn, put pressure onto it, hit it for 100, and if you have Rare Candy Charizard Super Rod next turn, you could just bring this Chi-Yu back, accelerate onto it with that Charizard's Infernal Rain, and Greg's just really not going to have a response to another Chi-Yu attack in these next following turns.
And I think OJVIND is planning ahead for exactly that. Quick Search fired off there does go ahead and grab that Professor Tourist scenario, of course. Supporter card that lets you take any one of your Pokemon and put it back into your hand. So you're going to go ahead and pick up that Charizard, rebench the Charmander. So the Charizard is ready to go in hand. And I'm now going to go ahead and retreat into the Charmander. Oh, specifically the one on the left. That was very, very important.
Yeah, setting the trap, essentially. I'm not sure either of these Charizard are going to be evolved this turn, so it really doesn't make a difference. No. But OJVIND is essentially saying, come and get me. If you knock this Charmander out, I have a response KO that's going to be way more valuable. And if you don't, if you just leave this Monkey Dory in the active spot, I could grab Rare Candy out of my deck, guaranteed, thanks to Quick Search, while also powering up the Chi-Yu. So while Greg has bought himself an extra turn to maybe get down another Dwebble, get some energy into play, you really have to wonder, what is the end game for Greg? It's not about prizes with this deck.
No,
it's
not
about
at all.
removing threats. But there hasn't been a single recovery card played yet for OJVIND. We do have to note that 1 Super Rod is in the prize cards up at the top here for OJVIND, so potentially it's not going to be accessed until a little bit later in the game. There are 2 in the deck. It is possible. Actually, OJVIND taking his prizes from the top, mixing things up on us a little bit. That's actually a really good prize card take. It's one of the old arts. It, kind of confused me there. That piece, rather from Neo, that Super Rod, it looks like.
Out before you were born?
Oh, yeah. We don't talk about what cards come out. We could have long conversations. For all I know, Sun and Moon was released, before I was born as well at this point. So Greg's going to go ahead and use a Pokegear. I'm sure that really wasn't the supporter he wanted. It could, however, turn out to be a point decision with boss's orders in hand. Go after Chi-Yu and hope your opponent doesn't have the necessary resources. And I have to wonder, or maybe lean towards yes, as that quick search just grabbed a piece that was held and nothing else was played. In a 5-card hand, right, how good could OJVIND's combination of cards be? Would need to have the Rare Candy, Charizard, Super Rod, Nest Ball, all of those pieces. Is that likely with a 5-card hand and just one quick search at his disposal?
Probably not. I think if you're Greg here, I think you weigh everything up, and it may be slightly marginal, but I think overall, yes, maybe this is the time you go for it. And it seems like Greg agrees, although, yeah, you can tell it's a very, very tough decision because I think it's very marginal which way Greg to do it. And actually, Greg changes his mind, just decide, no, you know what, I'm just going to pass here.
So Greg weighing his options, just going to take another turn pass with the Monkey Dory in the active spot. We're sort of at a little bit of a mini stalemate. Neither player really wants to commit energy cards to these other Pokemon, right? You could go ahead and use Rare Candy Charizard, knock out this Monkey Dory, but the Charizard kind of just does nothing when the board is filled with a bunch of Crustle, and more importantly, OJVIND's only playing 6 energy total, 5 of which being Fire Energy, which that Chi-Yu does require 2 Fire to attack with that Mega Fire of Envy. This has now become a resource war between these players and a sort of built-in puzzle for OJVIND specifically on how well he can deal with keeping his resources intact and having enough gas in the tank to get through the Crustles that are going to be slowly built up and pushed his way.
Yeah, and so OJVIND being, I think, very, very sensible here, knowing that it's unlikely, based on what Greg did previously, that OJVIND's hand is gonna get disrupted. So just build up the pieces, search the Rare Candy. You've already got the Super Rod, you've already got the Charizard, you already have the Dusknoir in hand. So I think waiting one more turn, OJVIND can search this out, and then I think at that point, OJVIND can put it all together for the win. Just playing it very patiently. I like the way OJVIND's approaching this.
No need to rush. We are in a back and forth pass war, Freya.
Yeah.
Each player just drawing for turn, doing what they can. It's a little bit more on OJVIND's side. Does find the Dusknoir. Here's the quick search, but with the way this math works out, I'm not sure there's a way necessarily for OJVIND to win, nor do I think he really wants to use the Dusknoir just yet, but this is really why I wondered if that was the turn Greg needed to go for the KO. Sure, you risk losing the game, but now that he's just given OJVIND so many turns of time to build up a perfect board, it feels like your chances, especially in this matchup, every turn OJVIND has access to quick search, just go down more and more and more.
There is one piece missing, so OJVIND just search another Rare Candy, so there's 2 in hand. Next turn, if you can go ahead, and there's the Iono. Oh, perfectly timed. Was that the top deck for Greg?
I have to imagine Greg would have just wanted to play this as soon as possible. Like you mentioned, double Curse Blast potentially at disposal. That could have been a dangerous situation. All those cards shuffled and put to the bottom of the deck. Now the question here, you didn't want to use that with boss's orders. Is now the time to put this in play? Still probably not, right? The Chi-Yu just can come up and guaranteed attack thanks to quick search, and we'll just see the pass again. So OJVIND's now going to be at 5 cards and have to take time from here to rebuild this hand up and kind of start to see how this cycle is going to want to be played from both players.
And so he's going to be thinking about it. Let's start to try and build up again. So going to go ahead and quick search. Let's see what OJVIND finds here. Going to, at the very least as well, so obviously here you can search for one piece, but you can also now shuffle those cards that you wanted, which were at the bottom of the deck, to make you more likely to be able to maybe draw one of them during the next turn as well as your top deck.
It is possible here for OJVIND to win the game. If OJVIND has enough Rare Candies and ways to recover the Dusknoir, you see double Rare Candy here, or not even double Rare Candy, a Fire Energy, plus a way to switch out this active, which would probably require Rare Candy, then Curse Blast 1 to KO the Monkey Dory, Curse Blast 2 onto the Crustle, plus another way to deal enough. You can't use the Defiance Band. I'm actually not sure there's another attacker that's better to power up. You would maybe be able to power up the other Charmeleon that does 70 for 3 Fire Energy. That could work, but with Super Rod bringing back the other Charmeleon, we may just see a slower approach from OJVIND this turn. Let's see what we can piece together. It's going to be that Ultra Ball, and Rare Candy was the choice here with that quick search.
Yes. So
Oh, and let's not forget its prize. You know, that would be an important resource to figure out.
Yes.
It's a little bit complicated as you talk through it. I think OJVIND's just going to start building these Pokemon up, evolve into Charmeleon, and hey, that's one less rare candy you need to use that Infernal Rain ability.
Yeah, exactly. So essentially, OJVIND is trying to build up the pieces in a way that's a little bit more Iono-proof. So you're building up pieces on the board. You have the Charmeleon down, you have the Dusknoir down, and then going to go ahead and Iono. Okay, there's going to be a big 4 cards here. Let's see, what does OJVIND find?
Yeah, I'm not sure it's necessarily looking for anything too important this turn. It's kind of just hit the bookmarks, right? You've got Charmeleon in play now, the Dusknoir's there, you're going to draw 4 cards from your deck, and then you're still going to have access to Quick Search every single turn. And that's more than okay for OJVIND. See if Greg's okay with just kind of doing this back and forth. Big piece still missing here for Greg. Has yet to find himself any more Crustle in play. We'll see the Cornerstone Ogerpon come down, so that's a way to deal with the Charizard, but Chi-Yu, without having an ability, can still hit through this Cornerstone Ogerpon. However, this is just another way to deal 140 damage to this Chi-Yu to KO it, and Charizard still can't deal damage to either of these Pokemon, so it's essentially acting as a Crustle with a Luxurious Cape, just having a little bit less protection against some of these other Pokemon.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very useful sort of tech again in sort of a number of matchups, which is why the Crustle deck does tend to play this just as a one-off usually. Of course, its own attack is quite nice as well. That Demolish does do 140 damage and punches through basically everything. So it is a nice little extra option. Like you said, kind of just like a Crustle in disguise, a little bit beefier. As we do see, as that Crispin is just going to be a pass, and OJVIND does go ahead and go for the Arvin, finds that Night Stretcher, and with basically no tools left in the deck, won't find anything else. But now Quick Search finds the rare candy off of that. Does OJVIND have the way to put it all together now? I wonder.
And with no knockout being taken, and with the most damage being able to be dished out is from that Chi-Yu, if a knockout is taken, there's just too much HP between the Luxurious Cape, the Cornerstone Ogerpon now coming down, and OJVIND's still at 4 prize cards, so it's still going to need to get through at least those 2 Pokemon, assuming Greg does not bench anything else. But saying that, it looks like OJVIND's going on the offensive here. Cursed Blast KO, Night Stretcher, Rare Candy, double Cursed Blast this turn.
Goodness
so it's going to give Greg 2 prize cards, but now all those energies and resources from the Crispin to power up that Cornerstone Ogerpon going to waste, as an even 2-2 prize trade is being taken from both of these players. Now OJVIND just needs to get through that Crustle with that Luxurious Cape, and those final 2 prize cards will be his.
Yeah, it takes an Ultra Ball and an Arvin off the prizes. Neither is going to be specifically helpful right now, I believe. But you can go ahead, put a Mist Energy onto that Charmeleon, and then just going to go ahead and pass. Just deal with the Cornerstone Ogerpon while you can, basically.
Yeah, and, you know, in this spot, if you're Greg, you just cannot afford to take a KO, it feels like.
Oh.
Even if you do, the best option, there is essentially no best option.
No.
You have to do some sort of combination of Hand Disruption and Gust, with Counter Catcher being a possibility, with it being in this deck. It is not a huge inclusion here. We'll have to actually check through this deck. I'm actually not sure there are Counter Catcher in this.
There's no Counter Catcher.
I mean, this deck usually doesn't need to use cards that bring up Pokemon to the bench. It's not a huge necessity outside of something like Boss's Orders. Really interesting, actually. There's no Counter Catcher, but there's 4 Boss's Orders in this deck. So Greg is, really relying off of things being even when it comes to gusting cards, and without having the access to both Hand Disrupt and bring up a Pokemon the same turn, could potentially be his downfall this first game.
Yeah, and actually, looks like Greg is just going to pass here. So back on OJVIND, there's the Charizard in hand, ready to go. Could use that to go ahead and power up something. You can power up the Charmeleon on the bench by evolving the Charmander inactive if you want to. Does go ahead and play an Arvin, though. Looking at that Pal Pad, you're going to want that to get back that Tourist scenario. We did see being able to, earlier on pick up that Charizard proved very helpful to OJVIND just to get that extra energy acceleration going.
Yeah, a lot of really interesting card inclusions. I think I saw Squawkabilly earlier in his hand.
Yes, you did.
Mezagoza. We're not in Lugia times right now, are we? There are plenty of interesting card inclusions, but it's innovation at the end of the day, especially when it's on a... The item from Arvin. Is it going to be the Turo that is shuffled back into the deck? Will we see something like Boss's Orders be brought back? We saw that discarded early on with the Professor's Research. Quick Search will find another item card. It is the second copy of Super Rod. With there still being another Super Rod available, I have to wonder if you know, with another turn of Quick Search, if OJVIND would be okay just taking a knockout with Charizard EX on the Monkey Dory and then having enough resources for Super Rod and another Charizard EX to be able to close out the game, especially since this Chi-Yu having a Fire Energy on it means that even if you target the Charmander down, a single attachment will still allow it to attack, meaning there's no real way to just deny every Chi-Yu option available.
I think with this move right here, what we're seeing is Super Rod shuffling in as basically a 1-0-1 Dusknoir line and the Fire Energy, and there's a Buddy Puffin ready to go in hand as well, which is, as we do see now, that gets played. I think we're going to see here a setup for next turn, another Curse Blast, and to finish off the game that way, just by sending up enough damage onto the Crustal so that you can KO it with damage from an attack, and then that Luxurious Cape will give up the 2 prizes and you win from there. I think that's the plan that OJVIND's going for.
This would make a lot more sense, you know, if the Charmeleon was still available. It isn't the prize card, so if you don't draw into the Charmeleon off of one of these 2 prize cards, with there being now no way to recover the Chi-Yu again, if your Charmander, or if your Chi-Yu goes down and you don't draw into that, how are you dealing that last 150 damage to that Charizard, or to this Crustal?
You evolve this Charmander to the active, you power up the Charmeleon onto the bench, and then you're doing 140. With the Curse Blast damage, that'll be enough. That's how you get there.
Curse Blast, it does work. You know, the Briar could also take a KO. However, you would have to use a Terra Pokemon to deal that damage, so it is a sort of a weird spot. Oh, I understand this now, too. Thank you, production backstage. It's a little bit complicated, but I'll explain here through the viewers. You know, Greg's going to go through his turn and figure this out. If you just use the Curse Blast to put your opponent at 2 prize cards, then Briar is active, meaning you can just use Burning Darkness on the Charizard EX to KO Monkey Dory, thus closing the game out, meaning now Greg can't feel comfortable leaving this Monkey Dory in the active since it essentially can be treated just like a 2 prize Pokemon.
Does Greg know that OJVIND plays Briar, though? It's one of those things that you usually
got shuffled back in.
Oh, just got the Palpad. Oh my god. Okay, right. So I didn't even realize I got discarded earlier. So yeah, now Greg is very aware of that. So yeah, with that knowledge, oh no, Greg knows it's a very, very tough spot now. Are we going to see? Oh, no, I was going to say Mind Bend, but no, that's not a Psychic Energy. So it's going to have to be the Hand Disruption instead. It's going to have to be Iono.
Yeah, and you can't even take a KO on this Charmander because Quick Search, again, just guarantees the Fire Energy attachment to this Chi-Yu. There's no counter catcher in this deck. Have to stress it again here for Greg. So he will put OJVIND to a 2-card hand, and Quick Search plus those 2 cards may not be enough pieces. But what do you do here if you're Greg? You passing or just attacking, both those options seem really, really bad. Even leaving this active Monkey Dory means your opponent has a chance to just close the game out if they have the correct combination of cards, either this turn or in those future turns thanks to that Quick Search.
Yeah, so that Briar combined with the Curse Blast to, as you rightly said, force Greg to be on 2 prizes, so you then can play that Briar and just turn that Monkey Dory into a 2-prizer. So it's going to be a retreat into the Crustal, and it's going to be a Unhinged Scissors.
I don't think he can afford to attack. He's just going to have to pass the turn with Crustal, because if you attack, the Mega Fire of Envy is guaranteed. So he's going to have to disrupt the hand this turn, and then look to play Boss on the following turn to target the Chi-Yu.
Oh, right, because you can Quick Search the extra Fire Energy you need. So yeah, it is guaranteed.
Exactly, it is guaranteed for the deck. So OJVIND's going to have more time to build this setup. I do wonder if there's still a Boss's orders in the deck. Now, you can't play Briar and Boss in the same turn. It's not a possibility.
I think I do see a Boss, I think. Just one. The list plays 2 Boss's orders in total, so...
It is an option. I have to wonder here, you know, if you're OJVIND, rather on Greg's side, does the win condition from this point switch from winning via prizes to just trying to deck your opponent out? Because it seems from this board state, neither player really wants to do anything. If you commit energies and attack with the Chi-Yu, then you're putting yourself at risk potentially for, you know, the Crustal to take the KO, and you can't bring the Chi-Yu back. And if you don't take the KO, then Greg's just going to keep passing with more cards in deck, and OJVIND eventually is just going to deck out. So this is a really interesting spot where it seems that both players' best condition at this point is to just continue passing the turn. And it seems with the amount of cards in deck, if there were to just be a stalemate, Greg is favored in this position.
Yeah, potentially. I think the problem is there are still enough resources left in OJVIND's deck that in a stalemate situation, OJVIND will eventually find all the pieces, like, just put together this, like, you know, last KO turn. I think that's going to be the biggest problem that Greg has. So, you know, in the end, maybe a stalemate goes in his favor, but not before OJVIND can find all the bits he needs, because he's been very clever. He's made sure to get things back with the Power Pad and the Super Rod, and it's been always exactly what he needed every single time.
Yeah, I mean, that is true. You know, things are not over till it's over. Pokevital A is another card that makes sure things are never over when it comes to this Pokemon. it is probably one of the least used A-specs in competitive Pokemon. There are some A-specs that see no play. This one is very interesting. It is a super potion, and I mean that not literally, but figuratively. This is something you never want to see when you're 10 HP, 20 HP away from KOing a Pokemon. And with that Pokevital, it means a poking strategy from OJVIND would not work, since you would just heal that damage off. I feel like OJVIND, really had a game plan through this match, but it could have been, that Super Rod trying to just tunnel into that Briar play that could put him into a sticky situation because, again, you can't play the Briar and Boss in the same turn. And that combination and that fact being the truth means that with no way to recover Chi-Yu, the resource war may have shifted back into Greg's favor.
How many rare candy does OJVIND have left?
There's one rare candy
Just
left.
one, yeah. That's what I think, because I remember seeing 3. So, yeah, 1 rare candy left. And he's OJVIND's already committed to using this rare candy for a Dust Noir because we saw that line was shuffled back in. And as we've talked about a few times already, the Charmeleon is prized. So you can't really afford to use one Charmeleon to evolve into a Charizard and then evolve one Charmander into a Charmeleon to get the attack that way. So this one Charmeleon being prized is really, really putting the hurt on OJVIND here.
Did we just fail Quick Search? I'm not sure Quick Search was failed, but you do have to grab a card when you use Quick Search.
Yes.
So just want to confirm that that was the case. I'm not sure if OJVIND grabbed a card, or it looks like it was the rare candy.
Yeah,
so OJVIND's good. Grab the rare candy, use the Town Search to search through. OJVIND's playing this deck for a while, so let's not doubt him in the spot. But looks like we're going to start to see the aggression come in. Charizard EX is finally making its way onto the battlefield after being picked up time and time again. That's the big number, though, Freya. 3 fire energy available. What do you do? Do you start to use steady fire breathing? You can do 60 every turn and power up the Chi-Yu. But again, that Charmeleon's in the prize cards. And with there only being 3 fire energy, how many fires are in the hand here for OJVIND? Because he's attached a fire energy to this Charizard EX. I wonder if there's another fire even available, right? 4 in play, 5 in the list.
It's 1 in the hand.
No way to recover.
There's 1 in the hand.
There is 1 in the hand, okay.
Yeah. So, yes, steady fire breathing. There it is.
Slow and steady wins the race. Something along those lines. Big top deck here for Greg. Finds the boss's orders. That's huge. This could be the opportunity, I think, where OJVIND could have the Chi-Yu fall with no way to recover. And while Greg does not know if the other Charmeleon is in the deck or not, if you use this A-Spec, heal the Crustle and all of its damage off, and then play boss on the Chi-Yu, I don't know if there's a way to lose the game outside of that. You would have to have Rare Candy, Dusknoir, and the Charmeleon plus the Fire Energy. See exactly what the choice is. We're just going to see the Monkey Dory move the damage over. Does he want to go for this boss? I feel like this is the best opportunity to because of how much your opponent has leaned into this Dusknoir line.
But then if that's the case, surely you want to move the Monkey Dory, use the Monkey Dory to move damage onto something else. The fact that Greg has moved it onto the Duskull gets me thinking.
This is still a risky spot. I mean, assuming every card was in deck here, Freya, if OJVIND just has Rare Candy, Dusknoir, and the other Charmeleon plus Fire, that's game over next turn.
Absolutely, it is.
So assuming that there's some sort of route, I feel like you've got to go for this boss play now. Greg understands that. Bring up the Chi-Yu and essentially put the pressure onto OJVIND for the first time in this match. It took 35 minutes almost, Freya. We'll just heal everything off. Understands this is what it's going to come down to as Crustle uses those superb scissors, takes the KO, and OJVIND is now on the backseat pressure. Can he win the game this turn with a KO? We'll see the Rare Candy into Dusknoir. That will go ahead and evolve that Pokemon, put it as to an option. But I do wonder, can OJVIND do anything else? I don't know if there's a way to win this turn besides maybe down the line Briar Counter Catcher. That has to be, the only option available, it seems.
Yeah, I think that might be what OJVIND is going for. So with that in mind, just going to go ahead and play the INO. 2 cards drawn. There's the Counter Catcher. There's the Quick Search.
Finds the boss's orders as well. With the Counter Catcher in hand, can you afford to just grab Briar this turn, wait, and then use that combination? See if OJVIND is going to go for that. And if you're Greg here, can you even play around this opportunity? It would probably require a way to get rid of the Dusknoir this turn. This is another huge draw here for Greg. Does Greg have another boss's order? No, but does
another Iono.
the Iono.
Oh my
we
goodness.
are playing Ring Around the Rosie with these opponents' hands, both getting shuffled, both put to the bottom. To see how this endgame finishes. Finds boss off the 2 cards. For Greg, that means if there's one more turn available and you can boss KO the Dusknoir that already has 30 on it, it would be in perfect range. Oh no, just 10 damage short off of those scissors.
Oh my god, yeah, 160 HP, 130.
This is such a back and forth game, ladies and gentlemen. I never thought Crustal gameplay could get this exciting, but we've managed to do it here at the World Championships.
I mean, we did say at the beginning this would not be like a washout either way. We said that this would be a very, as a Crustal game goes, very back and forth.
This would have been the game here for OJVIND if he found either the Counter Catcher or the Briar, but I believe both Counter Catcher were put to the bottom of the deck thanks to Iono. Is just going to have to, again, over 2 turns, try and set this combination up, and is thinking about it, just going to pass the turn. Greg, do you have a way to take the game closed out? We're going to see the Chorus's Tenacity get slammed immediately and finds the Stadium card. This is a way to boost the damage here from Greg by 10. Yes. We're actually going to see a Stadium I never thought would ever come into play.
Practice Studio.
Practice Studio. This boosts the Stage 1 Pokemon's damage by 10, which means with the 30 damage already on that Dusknoir, the Unhinged Scissors would be able to close the game out. There's no hand disruption, Freya. And I don't know if this 2-turn setup is going to be able to stop OJVIND from his power combo down the line with the Counter Catcher.
So I think this is it now. Yeah, with the hand not disrupted, OJVIND's going to draw Counter Catchers in hand. You're going to go ahead and quick search. You search for the Briar. You set up the damage onto the active with the Curse Blast. You Counter Catch the Monkey Dory. You go into the Charizard. You slam the Briar down. You be doing it in the right order to make sure, of course, that you actually can use it. Yeah. So Briar, Curse Blast, Counter Catcher, and OJVIND will take game 1 after an extraordinary 35-minute game.
Wow, you see all the pieces being put together. Greg's still trying to piece together how this works. Briar used first, then putting your opponent to 1, back and forth, but Charizard thought about that play to take a KO on the Dusknoir with the Lively Stadium, but if there was just a boss's orders to go to 1 prize, what happens there? How do you deal with that final KO? The Dusknoir just can't be used.
And you knew the Briar was there as well because you saw it get shuffled in with the Pal Pad. Yeah, I mean, it's not a situation you often prepare for, right? I'm sure, Greg in that mind might be looking back and doing a little bit of a head slap, but it's so tough.
And this is just, nightmare situation for Greg. This Crustal deck wants to win long games, and with there being just over 11 minutes left on the clock, I'm not sure how much of a possibility that is for Greg, especially if OJVIND just, again, takes a slow and steady approach, is ready to respond to aggression. You see Greg playing fast, but I hate to be a Debbie Downer. It just really doesn't seem like there's a way Greg can close things out, assuming there's a setup here from OJVIND in the second game.
So it's, so we had our game 1. Going to go ahead and just focus in on game 2 now. As we do see, the turn 1 wasn't great, but turn 2 can go ahead and Arvin found the Buddy Buddy Puffin and that Turbo Energize, so we'll actually be able to get a pretty decent setup going on here, so that's got to be something for Greg at least in this game 2. And he's playing fast, you can see.
We'll go ahead and see the Turbo Energize accelerate onto this Crustal. I don't know if we've seen, or rather onto the Dwebble, I don't know if we've seen Crustal try and Turbo out as fast as this, but Greg's got no other option. Just go ahead and do this. And OJVIND doesn't even care about the game playing out in a meticulous way anymore. Says, if you're going to put all these energies onto this Dwebble, I'm just going to get rid of it. And boom. From here, I think I've got the resources and the time to win out a second game.
It was cool to see in that turn 1 OJVIND, because going second did go ahead and call for family and actually will have to do it again. So not that much to work with in hand. No supporters played, but still able to get out some basic Pokemon at least and doing just enough to keep things ticking along nicely, as we see, that call for family going ahead and fetching another Duskull and a second Pidgey for good measure, too.
So, I mean, it just seems to keep getting worse and worse. All those energies now hitting the discard pile, 1-for-1 trade. OJVIND knows he just needs to essentially survive the game for 9.5 minutes, and with the Chi-Yu being at the disposal as an option, with there being plenty of rare candy, Pidgeot options available, as long as he just, can eventually start to play supporter cards and get in here, it seems like, OJVIND's going to have what he needs to stall this game out for long enough and win. And with Iono in hand, with there being the Technical Machine evolution, it seems there's going to be plenty of options to develop the board, especially with the Pidgeotto found in hand for turn. Yeah,
so that's a pretty solid kind of recovery setup from OJVIND, given a couple of turns of call for family, but now the TM evolution, and like you said, the Pidgeotto coming down, got to be feeling pretty good. 5 cards drawn, doesn't necessarily matter too much what they are, except, drawing that Pidgeot isn't great. Is there a judge call of some kind? I mean, OJVIND drew 5 cards. That's the right amount, right? Or did OJVIND draw 6? No.
We'll make sure we get everything settled out, see exactly how things are playing out. It looks like Greg actually drew 6 cards.
Oh, okay.
No. Not what you want to see, especially down a game, especially at the World Championships, playing on the biggest stage where every game matters. We'll make sure things get resolved out. Things, of this nature naturally happen. It is the Pokemon TCG. Mistakes do happen. We've got an expert team of judges up there, some seasoned veteran judges who have been involved in the Pokemon TCG for a while. We'll see how everything resolves out.
And especially when you're playing so fast, right? When you've lost such a long game 1 and you need to kind of turbo through to try and make it through to a game 2 and 3, it's just all the more likely that stuff like this can happen. And you think, oh, yeah, you forgot that you took a prize card because your opponent did Curse Blast, and then, yeah. Unfortunate mistake there from Greg. But as you said, the judges are on it. We'll get to a resolution quickly. And once we know what that resolution is, we'll let you folks know at home how we'll be proceeding.
Yeah, still have to think about that game 1. So back and forth. And you can really see how sometimes small decisions in the Pokemon TCG, and more importantly, this idea of tunneling, could impact the player's decision, right? You think about a combination. You think about how that Dusknoir changes the entire factor of that matchup, and immediately, Greg's thought process was just thinking about how do you go about getting rid of the Dusknoir, when if he had just taken a step out, scoped his vision just a little bit wider, he would see, well, if Dusknoir's the problem and my opponent has to let me take a prize card, if I just go to 1 prize, what does my opponent do? And I have to imagine, if Greg's going to think about this match, I'm sure especially during a judge call like this, he's got to be kicking himself a little bit if he comes to that realization.
Yeah. But the other thing is, as well, we have seen all the best players in the world. They will make mistakes like this sometimes. No one is absolutely perfect all the time.
Kidding, of course, Michael is a great player, and these 2 players are exceptional in their own right. We'll get things resumed, see what the result of that was, if there is a penalty at some line. Looks like time in the round at 8 minutes, so we're resumed at this point. Make sure we just get a confirmation of what is happening. It's just a warning, so it looks like everything was resolved. We're going to have as close of a game as possible, but again, got to bring the time back as a main deciding factor. It has already influenced how OJVIND's played this turn out, right? Used the Curse Blast the turn before to just remove that Dwebble out of play, make sure Crustle does not get evolved. And now with this Technical Machine evolution, Pokemon are getting to put into play mainly that Pidgeot EX.
Yeah. It's a good thing that OJVIND didn't have the second Pidgeot EX prize because, of course, TM Evolution, it only works to evolve Pokemon from the deck. So if there was one Pidgeot prize, then OJVIND having joined the other one would not have been able to evolve into it. But nope, got it absolutely fine there. Finds a Pidgeot, finds a Dusclops, and now over to Greg, who does go ahead and make use of that Town Store to very quickly find that luxurious cape. Wants to, again, make all of these Crustals as beefy as they possibly can be. And going to go ahead with the Air Balloon free retreats, actually just into Crustle and pass, it looks like.
Yeah, you got to root for Greg in this spot. He was so close in that first game, but you really got to ask yourself, even if Greg built up the perfect board, can he withstand the onslaught of Cursed Blast abilities and Chi-Yus being thrown at him over time? And with a 6-minute and 45 game plus 3 turns left, I don't know, as long as OJVIND doesn't go out of his way to just use use Infernal Rains as he so pleases, I think it's going to be really tough. Especially when Call for Family is just going to fill this bench up, put the second Charmander into play, and those Dusclops essentially act as wild card spots on the bench, since when you use them, you can just open that bench space up while also putting some damage counters on your opponent.
Yeah, it's not a great feeling if you're Greg and anytime I take a KO, it means that Defiance Band is a thing. It means that I'm just playing into so many different things. It just, Chi-Yu is now a thing as well. Just every KO feels bad. And considering KOs are how you win the game, that's a really bad position to be in if your KOs feel bad.
So just deciding here what to do. It looks like we're just going to see an evolution in the past. So again, those 6 prize cards aren't going to take themselves. Nope. We may get a nice assistment from the Dark Palm over from Dusknoir's side. That's not going to be enough. Every turn, Quick Search is just going to continuously grab these cards, set up for these combos. And hey, look, both Charmeleon are in the deck this time, and that means more rare candies being saved for Dusknoir down the line, and even Charizard if it's needed.
I don't know if maybe that was some of the Michael Pramott influence coming in, but I think Dark Palm was the name of the Dusknoir's ability all the way back from the Diamond and Pearl era.
You spoiled it. I was sliding it in there. No. Of course. Yeah, Dusknoir, you know, it hasn't had a high volume of super solid cards, but it always finds its way over time to be printed on a really powerful card. Yeah, this Dusknoir is no exception.
I mean, the Sinister Hand one that moved damage on the opponent's side of the board. Dark Palm and now Cursed Blast. It's always been, like I said, just very interesting, powerful cards. Speaking of interesting, powerful cards, Charizard EX comes down, brings in that Infernal Rain. All three of those Fire Energies going straight onto that Charmeleon.
I know we've got a lot of Charmander fans. I know people have Charmander as their favorite Pokemon. I know people love Charizard. It's their favorite Pokemon. Charmeleon's getting some love right now on this stream. I don't know if we've got a lot of Charmeleon fans, but Fire Blast is getting rid of this Crustle right now.
I always say, Charmeleon, underrated design. I think Charmeleon is really, really cool, and I agree. Seeing some Charmeleon love on the stream, I love to see it.
Oyvind would agree with you. That is a hot KO. Combustion, rather. Fire Blast combusting that. Crustle getting the KO. Monkey Dory comes up, but again, the time is ticking away. Less than 5 minutes left, and there has just been a lack of energy flow on Greg's side. With that being the case, you can't continue to just give this Charizard deck time. If you're not putting on pressure, it feels like you're just slowly getting consumed, buried in the sand. Yeah. Ogerpon's going to come down. It's going to, be another way to potentially build an attacker up. But the same Pokemon that can hit into this Crustle, especially when it has that Luxurious Cape, they obviously are not hitting the Ogerpon for weakness, but they're still able to deal damage slowly over time and chip away at that Pokemon.
Yeah, and again, like you were saying before, I mean, I'm seeing a lot of passes from Greg. I'm not seeing a lot of knockouts, and given that you're one game behind, that is really not the position you want to be in, so cannot feel good in the slightest. There goes to Super Rod, going to go ahead and shuffle that Dusknoir back into the deck. And are we going to start seeing some Curse Blast action this turn? I think we maybe might.
We could. That's half the recovery cards used for Oyvind from the deck, right? 2 Super Rod, or a little bit over half, right? There's 2 Super Rod in this deck and 1 Night Stretcher. So there's only 1 Super Rod left in terms of recovery from this deck. So it's got to be manageable of those resources. Putting on pressure early, especially when there's low time in the game. On paper, it sounds good, but you never know what can happen in the Pokemon TCG. Yeah. Keeping that last resource available, especially if you want to lean into the Chi-Yu, will be important. For now, though, excellent turn. Arven, Ultra Ball, all these Pokemon getting evolved. Cursed Blast plus Quick Search and everything has come together in this set here for Oyvind.
What was it? There's a very quick search, kind of appropriately named there. Was it the rare candy that Oyvind grabbed?
Looks like it's a surprise that we'll use later. Oyvind's going to go ahead and grab some pieces, see what's in the deck, and it looks like it was the rare candy. Oyvind, taking things a little bit faster in this game. See the Curse Blast be used. Is this going to be reminiscent of game number 1? This works too. You don't need to use another Cursed Blast. The 130 damage plus the 90. More than enough to take the KO on the Cornerstone Ogerpon, and now with just 2 prize cards remaining, and that Crustle having a Luxurious Cape on the bench, means that the victory is almost there for Oyvind. He may be able to close this game out with just 2 minutes left on the clock. We had a 35-minute game 1. We could have less than 10 minutes, and things be wrapped up here in game number 2.
I mean, if you're Greg, what do you do here? You have so many resources in hand that you think, normally this would all be so great, but right now, I guess Ino. That's Ino and Pray at this point, right? Or what else can you do?
I mean, that's a start. It really is, again, just putting energy into play. There have been 3 or 4 turns in a row of Greg just missing energy attachments down. Yeah. The Crustle can't even attack this turn if you use a supporter like Boss or Iono. And Greg, the strategy's not going to work. I hate to break it to you. You can't really win a game by deck out in 90 seconds. It's not going to be possible. It's just going to bring up Charizard. And now if you're Oyvind here with such a commanding lead, it's really just about, taking it slow within reason. Making sure you don't burn yourself out of resources. You've got plenty of cards left in deck. You've got ways like Iono to shuffle things back. And this is just an even better excuse for Oyvind to just burn the Professor Turo to get another use out of this Charizard and get it out of the active spot.
Why not, right? Just go ahead and pick that up. Just remove that liability, essentially. And then next turn, you can just set up even further. I mean, I say set up even further. We have like 1 minute left to go. I don't think much is going to be happening on Greg's side, no matter which way you look at it. There's the Turo. Going to go here, picks up the Charizard, Pidgeot into the active. Going to evolve the bench Charmander into a Charmeleon. You can just hold the Charizard for next turn, and just going to be a pass.
Can safely leave that Pidgeot EX in the active spot. It will be needing a 3-hit KO over on Greg's side to take care of it. He will go ahead and shuffle that Charizard to the bottom of the deck, thanks to the Iono. With there being 30 seconds left, Greg at maximum is only going to get 3 turns, with this being one of them. And I hate to break it to you, this is not an attacking deck. Superb Scissors is not capable of being an attacking menace. I think OJVIND's played this game masterfully. He's shown control. I think with the time winding down this turn, we'll be able to take this win and go to 4-0, rather 5-0. Play out these last couple of turns. What a, back and forth game 1 and 2. Pure domination almost from OJVIND in game number 2. Learned so much from that first game, it seems.
Yeah, learned so much from that first game. Still walked away with a win. And I think there with the time announced, Greg sees the writing on the wall, picks up the cards. OJVIND will, with having won game 1, will